The COB is presented by Rabobank. Awarded 2023 SMSF Savings Bank of the Year by Mozo.
Good afternoon and welcome to the COB. It's a Monday. It's a good day. My name's Carl Rod. I'm with Danny Akuye, and let's have a look at the market because maybe a post-Jackson Hole relief rally. A modest one, but a relief rally nevertheless.
Absolutely. So ASX 200 up about 41 points or 0.58%. And equally, the SIBO 200 up 8.6 points to 0.63%. So we will take a green on screen. Mind you, it is the last few days of the month. Not that I like to cast some cynicism, but you know, the market is down almost 4% for the month. So maybe some fund managers might be looking to,
reallocate.
Put some cash in.
Yeah, it could be just that. We'll have to obviously wait and see how the week unfolds to get a better feel for it. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some of the sectors that were performing reasonably well today. And we'll start with utilities, which were higher, generally speaking. APA Group and Mercury New Zealand, as well as AGL, leading that part of the market.
Yeah.
Healthcare as well, seeing a little
today.
bit of a bounce. Yeah, CSL picking itself up off the bottom of its range there, and Cochlear continues to edge higher too. But it's a pretty broad-based strength. We've got another page here, I think, of the healthcare sector.
Ramsay rallying after the sell-off last week.
Yeah, there you go. And Pro Medicus keeps just edging higher bit by bit. Telix as well reported last week, and getting closer to those levels that it saw a couple of months ago before there was that kind of, blow off top there for that stock. It did run pretty hard. It has run pretty hard this year. And the tech sector, that's the area of the market that was a little bit weaker.
Yeah, Wisetech continuing to drag the index down.
Yeah, there you go. So off by 1.5% as investors try to make sense of where that stock ought to be valued after, again, another one that's sort of ran up quite aggressively at different stages this year. But actually, otherwise, the tech sector doesn't look too bad. It is just that Wisetech story. But let's move on and let's get to our three themes for the day. And it's, a little bit of a relief rally, it has to be said. There you go, bouncing back. C-suite shake-ups, that's one that was interesting for me because we'll get to Fortescue Metals in a little bit. That's at one part of the story today, but also Sayona Mining will get probably across in the leaders and laggards. But it was down by 30% today after its managing director abruptly quit. I think maybe even sold a little bit of stock, I'm not too sure. But nevertheless, obviously...
It's not a good sign.
Not a great show of confidence in the business.
No.
When you just sort of up and
leave. And particularly when it's abrupt.
Yeah.
I remember we had it with Babcor. He left. He'd been there for ages. But it's never a good look if it's not well flagged.
Yeah, it was personal issues apparently, so you never know what it is. But,
personal issues.
Personal issues with the business, personal issues in my life, who knows. But nevertheless, it was, smacked down Sayona Mining, which was already sort of feeling the pinch from lower, I think it was a lower lithium price because we did see lithium miners just down across the board. Maybe a bit of trivia more than anything else. The Tilly effect. We have retail sales out today, up by 0.5%.
Apparently we've all been...
Eating more takeout.
I thought that was really interesting.
Cooking.
Exactly.
Cooking on those Matildas nights.
We've had a little bump in terms of maybe buy Dominoes. That's a joke. Yeah. Everybody don't go out and buy Dominoes necessarily.
No, but Danny's portfolio is heavily leveraged to Dominoes.
No, it's not.
No, but my diet is, funnily enough. Okay, let's get across some of that corporate news today. And we said Fortescue was the big one. Not just some C-suite changes there, with the CEO obviously departing abruptly as well, but a bit of a mixed set of numbers there. FY full year net profit down 23% for the year. Revenues were obviously down too. That's an obvious story when it comes to the iron ore price. Big impairment charge as well. I think it's at the Iron Bridge.
Right, yes. Delay,
that's the one. But yeah, overall, I think the stock was down about...
I've got it down 4.6%. So when it really comes to looking at the iron ore majors, it looks like Fortescue has well and truly taken the mantle of the worst performer for results.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure the last time it was below 20. It was this year, but it was a matter of at least a few months. I do believe. So you've got it there. What's about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, the last time we were below $20 a share. So we'll see if, maybe that's sort of a technical break there. Maybe signs of things to come. We'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, not a great set of numbers there from the company. Also on the watch list, Link, its share price a fraction lower today.
I think a lot of this is probably discounted. They'd flagged a lot, a net loss of 417 million versus a loss of 68 million last year. Revenue up 4.5%, and a final dividend of 4 cents. Now, obviously, they had to write off that whole UK thing with that
it was a big
fund.
slap on the wrist, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, the fund that went under, Mark Woodford's fund that went under. So they got caught up in that. And it's actually really interesting because that fund got caught in unlisted assets. And I chatted today with Christopher Joy, and just how many investment managers now have big exposure to unlisted private assets. And you know, there is a risk there when they're so illiquid and valuations coming down. Anyway, I'm not saying they're all going the way of Mark Woodford's funds, but just be aware of it. And so what else did we do? Hello World. How did they perform?
Well, the profit, full year net profit was down 81%.
Yeah, that must be for some reason though. It was up almost 6%. So again, discounted in the market.
Yeah, that must be again sort of a one-off item perhaps. But the revenue doubled at $165.9 million. Dividend 6 cents a share, and so continued growth in travel volumes, which is interesting because it's that kind of revenge spend on travel that just never seems to end.
You do wonder though, with the Aussie dollar at 64.5 cents, surely people are going to maybe switch from international to domestic travel at some stage. What I think is already starting to happen. They're saying domestic volumes are good.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Next DC also in focus today. The results were just probably a little below expectations from what I could tell.
Particularly the outlook, that's where the concern was. So that capital expenditure moving up to 850-900 million for full year 24. And that's where I think the market was a bit concerned, although you have to say a fall of 2.75% for a stock like this is really not that much considering.
Yeah, it was reasonable. I did the write-up this morning for the story, and I think that the guidance was for FY24 was for $418 million in terms of top line. So that was the analyst consensus estimate. So it was just a fraction below that.
Right.
So again, it's fairly marginal enough to maybe take a chunk out of the share price, but nothing to sort of end the world, perhaps, for the business by any means. But it was our stock of the day, and you're at the helm for the call, weren't you?
Absolutely. So it was the stock of today with Gaurav Sodhi and Mathan Somasundaram, and let's check out what they had to say.
About how they manage their balance sheet. They have to manage that very carefully. They've also now allocating capital to areas that aren't quite as productive. So we're talking about smaller data centers closer to customers, and also wholesale data centers which attract lower margins. Doesn't really change the investment case, but probably just alters the value equation enough for it to be a hold. It's been a buy for a long time for me, but for now, because of those risk factors, where the share price is, I'm going to go a hold. But I will say this is a very high quality business, does not get recognized for its quality, and it ought to be on the...
Because everything is. The problem here is right now, there is no real surprise. Everyone knows these good quality businesses, and everyone's paying too much for them. And you can see it, all the defensives in the reporting season got sold down on the result. People are paying too much. So look, I'm with Gaurav. I think the long-term thematic is solid. If you got in cheap, hold it. That's fine.
This is always
accept a pullback. That's just a matter of cycle. But if I'm putting fresh money, I'm not putting it right now. The valuation for me for the risk return is not there.
Yeah.
But look, it's a high quality business. Look, I've said that about a few other ones that gone higher rather than lower. So in that context, I would hope at some point this comes back so I get a bite at it. But yeah, I can't manage the risk return at this price.
Okay, let's get across the leaders and the laggards for the day, shall we? And we flagged a few of the big ones right off the top. But there we go. Ventia Services, this is the leaders, of course. Ventia Services, Tabcorp, Silver Lake Resources as well. Not a real sort of clear theme through that list, it has to be said necessarily.
Alcohol keeps chugging higher.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Are we seeing, I don't know, there has been that talk of perhaps rotation trade emerging with oil prices edging higher, and maybe, I don't know, cyclical starting to pick up again with rates moving up. I don't know if Ampol's perhaps a beneficiary of that by any chance, I don't know.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, lifestyle communities as well is up by 3.5%. Silver Lake, that's really just, I think, a story of it's got to bounce eventually. It's been an absolute, it's been a brutal underperformer. It had that issue at one of, I think it's mines, or it's sort of had some operational issues there, which saw a big tumble, I think, recently. There was also, I think, a little bit of a rebound slightly in gold prices as well, just by virtue of the fact that we have seen, some of that rhetoric out of Jackson Hole not being quite as strong as expected. The gold price has been fairly resilient, actually. In fact, sometimes we sort of speculate what's driving the gold price. You always know it's a yield-driven market when you see E-minis as well as the gold price correlated pretty much step by step.
Absolutely.
So if you overlay the chart, it's just the same thing. Bit of an inverse to the US 10-year there. But let's get to the laggards, because that's where all the fireworks were. And as you can see there, by the end of the day, Sayona Mining down by 25%. Like you said, Danny, when your CEO leaves, investors don't really like. It's like your football team not having a coach or something like that.
Absolutely. And Brainchip also under pressure today, as is Lake Resources. That is so volatile, that stock, isn't it? It really is a story stock, which the story keeps on being pushed out into the future. Iris continuing to tumble down another 6%, ditto alumina.
Yeah, I think there was some of those dip buys coming out on Friday for Iris. I think after its results, obviously, it just got absolutely taken to the cleaners for 2 days. It was down by 40% or so. I think it was up by a similar margin today. But yeah, being used as in what the crypto community they call exit liquidity, those buyers, those sellers who are just wanting to take that last bit off the table, perhaps happening today. So it's an interesting one, because a few people I've spoken to suggesting that it's actually not a bad stock, not a bad company in the long term. But I mean, one thing that I got from that result was that there was really, it kept talking about transformation, but transformation into what? It wasn't really particularly, it wasn't really well defined.
Exactly. Henry Jennings, when I spoke to him about it, he was like, they took this feature. I mean, I'm not a big user of Iris. I have to get better at it. But he said they took this feature away, and he said, as far as he was concerned, that was divorce. He's not coming back. You can only burn Henry once, and you're in the bad books forever, perhaps. But anyway, there we go. There's Iris Alumina also down by 5%. So some big moves, despite the fact that overall the market was fairly positive today. Let's get across the small cap leaders and laggards quickly as well, see if there's anything there that jumps out. Pilbara Energy, wow, up 42%. Mind you, it is a 9-cent stock. And I don't know any of the others, I have to say.
Well, 40S Memory was one that I think was up by, it doubled one day last week when it reported its earnings, pulled back by about 15%, and it's up by another 30% today.
There's no volume at the moment in a lot of these
stocks.
Right? Yeah, it makes it really hard.
On the last call, wasn't it? On Friday, they're just like, it's just not there. No
volumes, and it just really exacerbates the share price moves, that volatility, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's we're in just a world of far less liquidity, right? So I guess maybe people are just trying to remember what it's like without just the world flooded with cash. I'm not too sure. But let's go to the laggards now in the small cap.
And I have a feeling Appen is going to be sitting there at 32% down, and Opthea down 27, Bone Coal down 24. That's grim. Appen is really looking grim at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you're looking now at a company that's lost probably 97% of its value from its high. So if you bought at $36, I would hope that you've probably sold out by now, but if you're still holding,
you do wonder, I know they had that placement not so long ago when the share price really spiked. I mean, it was up at around $3.71. I mean, I read through the notes of what was going on, and they've just got restructuring costs and this, that and the other, but you really have to question the viability of this company.
Well, I think I was saying to you
debt levels. Let's have a look.
In the newsroom earlier that I was just writing something up for obviously one of our commercial partners last week, and it's trading at a price to sales of 0.6. So a multiple below 1 for your sales growth. So it's, the market's expecting that just the top line is going to shrink from here, obviously with such high debt burden.
It's flashing a lot of signals in terms of, once upon a time when, I'm just trying to get a handle. Yes, it just looks, not good. I mean, it's not a great story. Anyway, we wouldn't want to dwell on that too much, of course, but there you go. There are the laggards for the small cap space. Not too much on tonight, actually. There is a public holiday in the UK for what it's worth, but not too much in terms of economic or corporate data in the States. But we do have a little bit coming out tomorrow as we sort of,
I'll get to that kind of final stretch of reporting season. And Barb's, Clinneville, Mineral Resources, Worley, and
Lottery Corporation.
Thank you. All reporting tomorrow.
And yeah, you mentioned Michelle Bullock.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be fireworks. It's actually a speech about climate. You might actually like it. About monetary policy and climate change, the relationships and impacts of it, because obviously it's a passion of yours, if I may say so. But I'm sure if there's some question times at the end, a few journalists or what have you will try and maybe pepper in a question about, what life under Bullock reign at the RBA might be like.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Also very interesting to see how she's going to handle that whole concept of, how these big weather events cause inflation and how from a monetary policy or a central bank you're meant to cope with it.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a supply shock, right? But
it's a big supply shock. I think India is banning a lot of exports of key foodstuffs because of this one issue. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating one, especially in terms of when you start talking about potential central bank overreach and governments sort of abdicating their role to manage the economy effectively around these things. Just
it's getting very heavy for a Monday afternoon.
Oh, we got time. We got time to chat. I've got Monday-itis today. Bad case. It was such a lovely day yesterday. But nevertheless, let's get a final check on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ASX 200 did close up 44 spots, 6 points, 0.63% at 7,159.8. And the CBO 200 also up 0.63% at 8.5 points at 1,369. So a very nice start to the week.
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll put it in the books. And like you said, we're nearing the end of the month. So we'll see if we can continue to see this kind of...
And we're going into spring.
Going into spring, exactly.
Wow. Mind you, it feels like it at the moment. We're already in spring. It's so mild.
Oh, I think we were in summer in July in Sydney. But although it has to be said, I think we were talking today where September seasonally isn't a great month for equities. So...
it does have a tendency, September, October can get a bit, rocky. So we'll have to wait and see. Who knows?
Well, I was raised a Catholic. You read Ecclesiastes, it's kind of a time to reap, time to sow, everything turns of the seasons and everything like that. Bad for equities, good for the weather.
I think that's enough, folks.
That's enough. We'll wrap it up there. But remember, you can catch up on the good stuff, not me and my ramblings, on the website and app. There's plenty of that. Otherwise, have a lovely Monday evening and we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning.
The COB is presented by Rabobank. Awarded 2023 SMSF Savings Bank of the Year by Mozo.